So, welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining us today to share what we have accomplished with the support of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. I strongly believe that a rising tide lifts all boats. So, I ask my colleagues to join me in sharing our efforts collectively to bring greater context to the work as we each address a different slice of this issue around home repair. We are fortunate to have a representative from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation with us today to share why the Robert Wood Johnson is so focused on home repair. Now I turn it to Kimberly Cornett.
Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're calling in from today. It's a pleasure to be with you. My name is Kimberly Cornett. I lead the impact investing efforts at the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and really appreciate this group of grantees gathering and for all of you from joining across the country to share in their learning and bring your own experience to this really important topic. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation is a $13 billion private foundation based in Princeton, New Jersey, with an exclusive goal around health and racial equity. And what brings us to this topic is several years of work really looking at the intersectionality between health and wealth. And what we all know, and many of us on this screen have the privilege of enjoying, is that your home is also an indicator of how healthy you are. And unfortunately, for many Americans, that is simply not the case. And home both is a predictor of health outcomes, and the intergenerational wealth transfer that is possible also sets future generations up for success. Our investment initiative has 4 prongs. It is on foreclosure prevention, repair, which we're going to dig into today, tangled title, and the availability and the affordability of insurance. I want to give credit to my former colleague and good friend, Kobe Sandy, who is joining from his new posting at Mass Mutual. Kobe spearheaded this investigation several years ago, and I have the privilege of carrying the work forward. But really, we're gathered here today to focus on this issue of repair because particularly for homeowners with low wealth and low levels of liquidity, repairing their primary asset in their home is a particular challenge. And so what we have asked these grantees to do is to look for policy innovation solutions that can be applied, because I think one of the things that we know is that increasing the supply of housing is a particular challenge at this period of economic turmoil in the country where expenses are high for construction costs, land is not necessarily available. And so really preserving the supply of home ownership that is already out there is an issue of national importance that we simply don't think is getting a sufficient airtime. So we're here with all of you calling in from around the country to learn. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Kobe just because I do credit him as the author of this strategy in many ways, just to see if he has some opening comments.
Well, appreciate that, Kimberly. Really humbled to be here and really excited, really excited about the traction and the group of folks, the cohort that is here. At Robert Wood Johnson, we really look to back and support the good work that is happening by folks like you all. And the fact that we are just able to help catalyze that to some extent, bring folks together to be actionable and provide solutions and really try to elevate something that we felt there was not a lot of attention towards, but really capital could help be a part of the solution. So I'm just glad that those efforts continue to go on well beyond kind of what I put in the ground, and looking forward to the continued movement and inspiration and motivation, momentum that goes from this. So thank you all.
Thank you so much, Jacoby. I personally am eternally grateful that you actually connected us together. Immediately after you met with me, you started connecting me to these folks, and I have just been in awe of the work that's happening out there and just knowing that we can do more together. So I appreciate Robert Wood Johnson's Foundation's dedication to this, and so much, Jacoby, for seeing potential in all of us. So now, as you all listen to the goals and outcomes of our work to date, I would like to suggest considering a few questions that you can ask us at the end. One of those questions could be, what is the biggest challenge for local home repair programs to be successful? How can federal funding sources better align statutorily and programmatically to better support these programs? And what is the most pressing home improvement need in the areas that we serve? You can ask whatever question you choose, but those are just some ones to consider. Now I am proud to turn to my colleagues to speak. You'll be hearing from the Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies, Housing Solutions Lab at New York Furman Center, Partnership for Housing Affordability, National Council for State Housing Agencies, and then from us, the Coalition for Home Repair. Starting off, I will be returning it to Sophia Wadeen, a senior research analyst at Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies. Sophia works on projects related to rental housing, residential remodeling, and housing inadequacy. I now turn the floor to Sophia.
Perfect. Well, Brea, thank you so much for that introduction. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. How is that looking? Can people see?
Yes.
I will assume so. Okay, terrific. So yeah, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm really happy to share some findings from our new paper, which I did with my colleague Carlos Martin, as well as Todd Swanstrom, Alan Malik, and Austin Harrison. With the support from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, we have recently produced a new working paper. The overall goal of this research was to survey what we know about housing conditions and the impact of substandard housing conditions on households. And in doing so, we also reviewed the programs that exist to support households with home repairs, the impacts that those programs are known to have, and the policies that have shaped our current home repair landscape. And so as part of this work, we also involved practitioners in a series of virtual discussions. We heard from home repair providers who operate in the public and civil sectors and at the federal, state, and local levels. And those insights helped to inform us of some of the practical challenges in delivering home repair assistance and ultimately just the need to invest more in our existing housing stock. So now I'm going to go through some of the main findings from our paper. And the first point that I want to highlight is that substandard housing has persisted in the US. We rely on the American Housing Survey as the largest nationally representative housing survey. And this, for decades, has also tracked the physical conditions of the US housing stock. And so the measure that we're looking at in this chart here is housing inadequacy. This inadequacy measure was developed by HUD, and houses can be classified as moderately or severely inadequate, depending on the number and the type of physical deficiencies that are present within a home. So this is one measure of habitability that captures a lot of pretty significant physical problems that could be present in a housing unit. And what we see from this data is that this problem of housing deterioration and substandard conditions has persisted over time. And in the last 2 decades, there's been very little change in the number of households living in such housing. So in 2021, 6.7 million US households lived in homes classified as moderately or severely inadequate. And this problem has persisted for renters and for homeowners alike. Now, to drill into the data a bit more, when we're talking about housing inadequacy and housing problems, this chart kind of shows what specific conditions we're talking about. So substandard housing conditions range from problems like water leaks, hazards such as large holes in the floor or large areas of peeling paint, failures of heating and cooling systems, pest infestations, the presence of mold. So there's a diversity in these problems. And also the extent of these housing problems is not evenly distributed across the population. When we look at the rates at which households are experiencing physical inadequacy, we see that households with lower incomes and households of color are the most likely to be exposed to these physical problems. So overall, about 5% of US households live in homes in a state of severe disrepair, as reported by the American Housing Survey, but these rates are much higher for households with lower incomes and for Black and Hispanic households. So of course, poor housing conditions, as with many areas of housing, is one way in which racial disparities are created and also reinforced. Now, existing measures of poor housing quality fail to capture the full range of physical deficiencies present in housing today. So when we take a broader look, even broader than housing inadequacy, many homes that meet the criteria for basic habitability still have a lot of unmet repair needs. So this chart here comes from the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia. They did a study that found that about 35% of US households lived in a home with at least one critical repair need. And the need for investment is even greater when we think about the higher standards we want to achieve for our homes, including things like energy performance, accessibility, and disaster resilience. These repair needs are also important for the health and financial well-being of residents. And taken together, the repair needs of the housing stock are pretty diverse and complex, and ultimately as a group beyond the means of households to remediate on their own. Now, substandard housing is linked to a range of negative outcomes for individuals and communities. This is something else that we surveyed. A variety of housing conditions, such as poor ventilation or and overall structure quality, can cause different health issues, including chronic respiratory infections, asthma, stuff like that. Any home built before 1976 is likely to have lead-based paint in it that children could ingest. So these are some of the health consequences. And poor housing quality has financial consequences too. When households with lower incomes do make investments to repair their homes, they often experience financial strain if they have lower incomes, and that can lead to housing instability. And when the costs of repairs become too high for a household to pay for, that limits their ability to accumulate wealth by investing in their home. Now, all of these costs, all of these individual costs fall disproportionately on lower income households and on people of color. And these costs also manifest at the neighborhood level and are concentrated in neighborhoods that have been shaped by segregation and disinvestment. So the three maps that are on the right here come from a study of childhood asthma in St. Louis. The first of these three maps shows the age of the housing stock by neighborhood. The second shows the percentage of residents who are African American, and the third shows the childhood asthma rate. So this is one example among many of how substandard housing conditions and their consequences reinforce existing inequities. And so in response to the persistent problem of housing deterioration, there have been many interventions that have emerged in the last half century to help meet these challenges. So this is a long list. Today, there's a really broad range of assistance programs that are operating in the public and the civil sector, and nationally and at the state and local level. This is a list of the programs that we describe in our paper, and I encourage you to check out the paper to learn more about what each of these programs is offering and where and how they operate. But across these many programs, one unifying theme is the way that underfunding and capacity challenges have contributed to a fragmented landscape. These programs differ pretty widely in terms of the repairs that they undertake. They often target a specific need or a specific deficiency, such as habitability, energy performance, accessibility, and so on. Now, income is the primary basis for eligibility across home repair assistance programs, although geography and demographic characteristics, or even housing tenure or geography can also be considered. But the fragmented nature of these programs and these differences in terms of who is served, the types of services that are offered, and the level of and structure of the funding means that there are ultimately gaps in who can receive assistance. So the workshop discussions that we held with home repair practitioners echo many of the same challenges outlined above. We heard from home repair providers in the public and civil sectors and at all geographic scales. And across the board, participants underscored the need for an approach to home repairs that is well coordinated and well funded. And so while working in this environment that's kind of shaped by these limitations, both budgetary and statutory limitations, the participants shared the work that they were doing to expand the pool of households that they can reach, to improve the procedures, to combine and layer benefits in different ways, and ultimately to make the most out of their limited resources. Participants also highlighted new and recent efforts they've undertaken in order to broaden their effectiveness and reach. This includes new procedures to create common applications for city home repair services, improving coordination between city departments, and creating shared referral lists from households who can't be served by a single program. So there's a lot going on in this space, a lot of new pilots underway, and a lot of innovation in the face of all of these constraints. So this paper, this provides a comprehensive, and I should say my presentation also provides kind of a whirlwind, I guess, view of the state of housing disrepair and the state of repair assistance. And both the data that I just shared, as well as the discussions with practitioners, highlight the different ways that housing conditions need to be improved. And in order to do this, we need more funding. One part of the paper that I didn't mention is, of course, our research about program evaluation. Research consistently shows that home repair programs work, that these interventions produce positive social benefits. So improving housing conditions is a matter of health and financial well-being, as well as a matter of racial and environmental injustice that can't be ignored. So with that, I'll say thank you and move on to the next presenter. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sophia, for starting us off with that foundational understanding of the data that's available and what more we should be aspiring to learn. Now we turn to the Housing Solutions Lab at the New York Furman Center. Jess will share about a Peer Cities initiative. She is the director of the city engagement at the Solutions Lab with a strong background in working with legacy cities. Jess?
Thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. And then let's see. Having a little difficulty making it.
Jess, you might need to be in PowerPoint instead of Google Slides in order to use the same thing you were using before.
Yeah. Great. How does that look?
We can see the entire screen, or like we can
Okay.
see the whole browser.
I think you still needed to press slideshow to get that full screen effect.
Hang on one second.
No, take your time.
Okay, does that look okay?
Now go
No.
press that one spot that says from the beginning.
This is why we practiced, right?
I think to your left-hand side, you should see there we go. Fabulous. Oh,
Okay.
it went back. Well, it went back to the, okay, there we go.
Do you see my notes or?
No, we do not see the notes. We're all
Okay,
good.
great. All right. Thank you so much. And sorry
No
for the technical difficulty. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present today and to the Coalition for Home Repair for bringing us together to share about our work. My name is Jess Wunsch, and I'm the Director of City Engagement with the NYU Furman Center's Housing Solutions Lab. The lab has been around for just over 3 years, and we work with leaders in small and mid-sized cities around the country to plan, launch, and evaluate evidence-based local housing policies that advance racial equity, increase access to opportunity, and improve long-term health and well-being for residents. Ongoing support for the lab is provided by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. We work to advance our mission in several ways through timely policy and data analysis, research and evaluation with partners, technical assistance, peer learning and collaboration, and finally, through the dissemination of our work on our website, Local Housing Solutions. So we really aim to meet cities where they're at and provide the policy tools, resources, and data they need to make evidence-based decisions about local housing policy. So my role is really focused on technical assistance and connecting our peer cities leaders to each other in a meaningful way. Over the last several years, the lab has convened a number of city cohorts, which we refer to as our peer cities networks, focused on a range of topics relating to addressing housing supply challenges, addressing racial disparities in housing, and also focused on comprehensive local housing planning. And now for the first time, convening a cohort focused on home repair. Like others in this group, we receive support from RWJ to convene local leaders to better understand their challenges and areas for opportunity in advancing more equitable home repair programs. So for this cohort, we met virtually for 6 sessions over the course of 3 months, and then we hosted an in-person networking and workshop convening. Our goals for this network were to foster shared learning and support among cities through a peer cohort model, which we know that can be a very valuable tool for exchanging ideas and knowledge, identifying challenges and opportunities for program design, implementation, and evaluation, identifying promising practices and strategies in the home repair space, and then disseminating our findings as well. So by convening local practitioners, specifically local government folks who are focused on home repair, we sought to understand answers to the following guiding questions. What are the challenges cities face in designing, implementing, and evaluating home repair programs? What are promising programs and practices to address these challenges? How are cities incorporating issues of equity? And what support do cities need in order to strengthen and refine their programs? So our process for city selection involves putting out an expression of interest form and doing some additional outreach. We received nearly 50 submissions of interest from almost 50 different cities around the country to participate in the cohort, which really highlighted to us how critical the need is in the home repair space. We ultimately selected Atlanta, Baltimore, Chicago, Detroit, Louisville, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh to participate. And we went with these jurisdictions and selected these places because they had pretty well-established home repair programs. But we did receive, a ton of interest within that 50 submissions, initial submissions, like a ton of interest from smaller municipalities and mid-sized municipalities that were interested in launching programs for the first time, or, creating more than one program, that kind of thing. After seeking input from cities as part of our onboarding process, we identified a few areas of shared challenges to focus on during the cohort sessions. The first and chief issue we heard, which has already been acknowledged, was the difficulty of using current sources of funding for home repair programs and the challenge with securing new sources of funding. We talked through the different cities' approaches to meeting demand, how they're selecting residents for home repair programs, how they're prioritizing specific populations and types of home repair projects. Many of the cities that were in the cohort were also navigating property title deficiencies, so dealing with tangled titles and heirs property issues, which impeded their home repair work. We also heard that many of the cities have a number of home repair programs operating at any given time, and so stakeholder and program coordination to really maximize those programs was really difficult to do. And lastly, we couldn't ignore that a lot of the home repair work and infrastructure that was in place in these places, folks just weren't able to carry out all of their goals and objectives in this work, given that there were contractor and workforce challenges in carrying out the programs. So really woven throughout all of these topics, we worked with the cohort cities to discuss how aspects of program design and implementation are both already helping cities, reach residents most in need and achieve, some of their equity goals. But it also really showed, new areas for exploration and problem solving to help them advance equity. So to go through some of our key insights and learnings by area of focus, some of the ones that I just mentioned, and we learned so much from this experience, and I couldn't capture it all in these slides, but would love to talk to folks, and I'll be talking towards the end of the presentation about ways of learning more about what we've gleaned from this cohort experience. But to mention a few, as I mentioned, the funding piece, was really the biggest challenge that cities were navigating when it came to administering and implementing programs. From the jurisdictions in the cohort, we learned that the current dollars for home repair, of course, just fall short of the demand, and that diversifying and layering sources is critical, but very difficult to do given, different sources and different requirements and processes for the sources. So cities are thinking about new ways of creating local funding streams and engaging with philanthropy, engaging with hospitals, and looking towards federal dollars such as IRA that could be used in the future to help fill the gaps. We really found quite a bit of variation in the extent to which cities are relying on philanthropic dollars to support their home repair work. Some communities relied more heavily on philanthropy to fund programs. Some of their programs were nearly all funded by local philanthropy, and utilizing support from community foundations, while others rely primarily on federal dollars, such as CDBG. And I did just want to mention, one of the things that really stood out to the rest of the cohort and is somewhat unique to Pennsylvania, but is the promising, new source of funding with Pennsylvania's whole home repairs program, which has really supported Philly and Pittsburgh in broadening the scope of their home repair work and flexibility. So we know that those funds have been limited, but hopefully there will be more in the future for home repair on the state level. When it comes to attempting to meet high demand for home repair assistance, it's really on cities and their partner organizations to develop systems for prioritizing residents and specific home repair projects. And so I think this was really like the bulk of, a lot of what we learned was different ways that communities, different opportunities and ways that they can achieve greater equity by targeting specific populations to the extent that that's a legal avenue, and that cities can make systematic choices about which types of programs to prioritize. So we saw a lot of variety across strategies for prioritizing projects and for trying to meet the demand, given that there is always this constraint on the resources to serve residents. We also saw a lot of variation in how folks are using home repair programs to advance broader housing goals and neighborhood goals that they have, in their jurisdictions. And so just to name a few of the criteria beyond income that we saw, and this is, the Joint Center has also mentioned this in their presentation, but all of the cities used income as an initial indicator of program eligibility, but there was quite a bit of variation in terms of other criteria that they were using to prioritize residents and projects. So whether it be targeting of specific groups, looking at the length of residency for residents, targeting specific geographic areas by zip code or based on areas of historic disinvestment, and thinking about homes with ongoing housing quality concerns and how to, service those for folks first. So many of these cities are using multiple criteria, but I just tried to flag a couple here. And then finally, we know that cities are often operating multiple programs with different funding sources, goals, and implementing partners. And with limited capacity for coordination, this can be a challenge for optimizing operations, providing necessary support to residents, and tracking the impact of their home repair programs. So some cities are trying strategies to get at some of these pieces, like using universal applications and data sharing and several other strategies that have already been mentioned. But I wanted to just point out two municipalities that stood out to us and that the rest of the cohort, really benefited from learning from around program and stakeholder coordination. And the first is Baltimore's HUBS program, which stands for Housing Upgrades to Benefit Seniors, which was created to help streamline senior social services and home repair services across the city. So there are 13 different partners that are working on this one program, but it's ultimately designed to be a one-stop shop for senior home repair, and requires, a lot of program and partner coordination in order to make it successful. But at this point, they have served over 3,000 homes across Baltimore City. Another community that I wanted to just mention quickly is Detroit and their efforts to, for the first time, convene their own home repair task force, which is designed to increase, again, for the first time, coordination among 49 organizations that are involved in home repair work in the city of Detroit, with over 40, administering over 40 programs. And so this was another area that I think really stood out to us in the cohort, is the effort and attention that it takes to build these stakeholder partnerships in order to operate most effectively. So to come down to my last slide here, we've considered this opportunity as an entry point into home repair for the Housing Solutions Lab, and we see it as important to a range of issues that are close to our mission, such as housing quality, affordability, preservation, aging in place, and preserving wealth through homeownership. So we know there's still a lot more to do in the home repair space. And while it's increasingly, this has been mentioned earlier, but while it's increasingly on policymakers and funders' radars, I think there's still, it became clear to us through this work that there's still many limitations in maximizing the impact and achieving the scale of the home repair need with such limited resources. And we know that even when households are served, programs only address some of that need. And since a lot of the policy discussion focuses on housing affordability and building new housing, we believe that we need similar support for home repair and preservation more broadly. And I think, just to underscore, we've also learned how much of an opportunity there is to support cities in developing and advancing their equity goals through their home repair work. So in terms of next steps, we'll continue to monitor and support the 7 cities that were part of our network. We've already, had some really valuable feedback from them about how they've integrated their lessons into their work. They're all continuing to meet with each other and collaborate and share insights on their programs. The Furman Center is also continuing to pursue work in this area related to Tangle Title and heirs property in New York City. So the center is working on analysis that is looking to identify homeowners at risk of heirs property issues and deed theft, and create a protected data set for legal aid providers and tenant organizers to use in supporting these households. So that's something that we hope to be able to extend that type of analysis to other cities, and to create a prototype of how we might do it, or how small and mid-sized cities might be able to do that. So that's one area that's on our radar. And then lastly, we plan to develop new policy resources and case studies to support other local programs and practitioners. And we'll have many things kind of synthesizing the learnings from this cohort experience towards the end of this year. And because we ended up shifting our scope a bit to be complementary to the work of the other grantees on this call, we've also been working to identify new opportunities to convene home repair practitioners from other places around the country, especially those that we didn't hear or we weren't able to select in our initial cohort. So hoping to run another cohort in the near future. And so I think that really wraps up my presentation. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about our Peer Cities Network.
Thank you so much, Jess. That was amazing content. And just to give a shout out, I reside in Detroit. So yeah, it was really amazing for that they were selected. There was a question in the chat about the funding. It's actually the city of Detroit funded their home repair task force. We have actually, since bankruptcy, we've been in the black for a few years, doing good. And so now we're able to invest back into our communities in these amazing ways. So just wanted to share that. So next we'll hear from Woody Rogers, the Policy Director at the Partnership of Housing Affordability, who's responsible for guiding policy efforts to increase housing affordability options in the Richmond region. Turn it to you, Woody.
Thanks, Freya. Let me try and get my screen shared up here. Can everyone see that? I'm just going to assume yes, unless I hear differently. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to Freya and her team at the Coalition for Home Repair for organizing this event and inviting me to talk about our project. We were very lucky to be awarded a grant through the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation last year to support our work on evaluating the impact of critical home repairs on the wealth and financial well-being of low-income Black homeowners in Richmond, Virginia, that I've been working on along with my colleagues, Javon Vernon and Karen Black. So just a little bit of background on us. The Partnership for Housing Affordability is a 501c3 nonprofit organization based here in Richmond, Virginia, that is dedicated to raising awareness around and providing policy solutions to affordable housing issues in the region. We serve as the lead housing organization on policy, collaboration, and data in the region. And you can see our footprint in the map to the right. It's about 9 localities centered on the city of Richmond. So our study focuses specifically on the impact of home repairs for Black homeowners in Richmond. And we chose this focus very intentionally. We know that in Richmond, as is the case across the country, that a history of racist public policy and disinvestment in communities of color has resulted in a significant racial wealth gap that remains today. Across the largest localities in the Richmond region, Black households continue to have incomes 20 to 30% below white households, and this gap has not started to close in any locality in the region since 2016. Additionally, the home ownership gap between white households and BIPOC households remains significant. While nearly 70% of white households in the region own their homes, less than 50% of Black households do. And these disparities have resulted in a loss of 3,600 Black homeowners in the city of Richmond since 2000, and there's a 55% gap in the ownership of primary residence wealth between Black households and white households in the region. Furthermore, national research tells us that homes owned by Black households are worth 2.5 times less than those owned by white households, as Black homes are more likely to be undervalued by appraisers. So, as other initiatives in the Richmond region have developed to close this racial wealth gap by focusing on creating new home ownership opportunities for first-time BIPOC buyers, and we are very excited about and fully support, we wanted to understand the importance of preserving wealth for Black households through home ownership. As we've seen the region lose Black homeowners and the gap in income and home ownership rates by race remains relatively constant, we wanted to understand how home repair programs work to ensure that Black wealth through homeownership is maintained. So our study, looking at the impact of critical home repairs on wealth and financial well-being of Black households, focuses on these 3 key research questions. First, did home repairs have an effect on the financial wealth and well-being of Black households who received repairs? Second, did not receiving repairs impact Black households' financial wealth and well-being? And then third, do these outcomes vary based on the type of repairs provided and the neighborhood in which the homeowner lived? By answering these questions, we hope to more fully understand the impact that critical home repairs can have on the preservation of wealth for Black homeowners in Richmond. So to try to get at answering these research questions, we thought the most efficient and effective way would be to target an organization already doing this repair work who has a list of clients already that they'll be working with. So we've partnered with Project Homes, a community-based nonprofit here in Richmond and the largest provider of critical home repair services throughout the region. Project Homes home repair programs provides repair services to clients who have household incomes below 80% of the area median income, which is around 80,000 for a family of 4. Though most clients have incomes well below that level. Over 70% of Project Homes' clients identify as Black. In the 2021-22 fiscal year, Project Homes completed 230 home repair projects that had an average cost of over $11,000 per repair. So using Project Homes as sort of our client base, we crafted 2 groups that we would use in our study, a treatment group and a control group. The goal of engaging with these 2 groups was to be able to compare the impacts that repairs had on the treatment group, which included clients who received home repairs, and compare that to people in the control group who were households who are currently on the waiting list for those repairs, but did not receive them in the year's timeframe that our study covers. For the treatment group, we coordinated with Project Homes to understand which households would be receiving repairs during 2024. And then for the control group, we identified a subset of households on the Project Homes waiting list based on their proximate location relative to clients in the treatment group and their neighborhood conditions. So our study relies on a number of different data collection methods, including 2 rounds of surveys with both the treatment and control group. One survey is done before the repair is complete, and then another will be completed 1 year after the repair has been finished. We also are going to conduct focus groups with Black households to dig a little bit more into some key questions that the survey has shown, and then also key informant interviews. The first phase of our project really focuses on gathering data in an initial round of surveys with the treatment and control groups. To incentivize households to take the survey, we aim to keep it short, under 15 minutes in length, ensure them that the survey answers would be anonymous and confidential, and provided them with a $50 gift card for completing the survey. With our treatment group, we coordinated with Project Homes to do the surveys to go along with one of their project managers during the initial inspection phase they do for the repairs. And this really allowed us to more quickly build legitimacy with the household, since Project Homes was a familiar and trusted partner. And then we surveyed the control group over the phone using a very identical set of questions in our survey. And some of these questions and topics covered in the survey included things such as the household's length of ownership and how they first purchased the home, what kinds of repair needs the household had, and in what part of the house did those issues impact, how these issues made each of the household and owners feel about their home. Did it make them feel less comfortable in their home, less safe, less healthy? Was the home less accessible? Things like that. How significant are outside pressures to sell their house? How significant are the owners feeling these pressures to sell their home, and why might they sell their home if they chose to? And then lastly, we asked some questions about estate planning and whether these homeowners have a mechanism in place for a smooth transfer of ownership. So after months of coordinating with Project Homes and their client base for surveys, we have completed 44 surveys with the treatment group receiving repairs and 57 with the control group who are on the waiting list. And so we need to dig a little deeper, but we have some preliminary findings to share. Overall, the majority of people we survey are longtime homeowners who outline that their housing costs, including mortgage payments and utilities, are their most expensive monthly costs. Among the treatment group, when looking at the most common repair needs, they said electrical issues, plumbing problems, or heating issues. An additional 20% that they didn't have any unexpected repair needs in the past year. It's a little bit interesting when you compare this to the control group, which differs somewhat, as their most common repair needs were plumbing issues, roofing issues that needed replacement or fixing leaks, or issues with the foundation of the home. Additionally, in the control group, a larger percentage of households said that they had unexpected repairs in the past year when compared to the treatment group. Though the majority of households we surveyed in both the treatment and control group claimed that the repair issues caused their homes to feel less safe, less healthy, and less structurally stable, the vast majority of respondents, 90% in the treatment group and 84% in the control group, maintained that their homes felt safe and comfortable to them overall. This is a pretty interesting tension that we hope to explore more in our focus groups and interviews, where we can better understand the perception of owners, how owners see their home as safe and comfortable despite the repair needs that present themselves to them and make them have to apply for the program. Also, when asked what the homeowners would do if they were given $1,000 to spend on their home, a higher percentage of households in the control group claimed that they would address home repairs and maintenance rather than those in the treatment group, suggesting that for households in the treatment group, there is some relief knowing that Project Homes will address critical issues and that they can work on other aspects of improving their homes if given the $1,000. And then finally, the households we surveyed are really receiving significant external pressures from parties interested in purchasing their homes. So more than half of the people we've spoken to say they receive offers to buy their homes weekly, and over 80% receive such offers at least monthly. However, despite these interested parties and pressures to sell their home, 90% of the owners we talked to say that they have little to no interest in selling their homes. Most claim that the current housing market in Richmond means that even if they did sell their homes, they could not afford to buy another home and feel as though they have nowhere else to really go. And then the last thing I just want to point to is that even though 75% of the homeowners we surveyed said they wish to pass down their house to family or friends, only 35% have a will or some other way of estate planning in place to do so. So this significant gap is an interesting finding that we weren't really expecting, and suggests that there may be a greater need for some pro bono type estate planning services in Richmond for these low-income group of homeowners. So as we look to next steps, we're wrapping up phase 1 of the study now, and we're looking to get started with phase 2. So in this next phase, we plan to conduct focus groups and key interviews with particular stakeholders and Black households to better understand the impact of home repairs on household wealth. The goal for these focus groups and interviews is to identify and define the role of homeownership and wealth accumulation for Black homeowners in Richmond, their level of access to capital for home repairs, and the factors that influence generational wealth, such as the use of estate planning to pass down their home as an asset to the next generation, or issues involving clear title. And then the final part of our data collection will involve reaching back out to the same households we surveyed in phase 1 and surveying them again, asking how their repair issues have changed over a year, and if they received a repair, how it impacted their financial and overall well-being. And just to sort of conclude, overall, we've already identified some broad challenges with providing home repairs to low-income families and how they might impact wealth preservation for Black households through our work in this study. First thing, each client receiving repairs has a set budget for their home repair work due to limitations from the funds that Project Homes receives from our local jurisdictions, which was kind of touched on in the past couple presentations. This really means that many households are not able to receive the full list of the repairs they need. Many times when we've gone along with Project Homes on their initial inspections of the house, they say that they'll tell the homeowners that they'll do as much as they can with the budget that they have available to them, but that really they're not able to fix everything that might be on the homeowner's list. On a related note, many of the homeowners we survey suggest that without the home repair programs, they would not be able to address the repairs or would have to try to fix things themselves. Not only do unaddressed home repairs add to the financial and overall stress of low-income homeowners through increased utility costs and the stress of deferred maintenance, they also present unsafe living conditions. Since many of Project Homes' clients are elderly or have children living in the home, we know that such unsafe living conditions can have a detrimental impact on the health, especially of these groups. And then the last thing from our preliminary findings, we've seen that estate planning is really necessary for many households who wish to pass down their home to family or friends, but they do not currently have a legal mechanism to do so. This is a critical part of ensuring that Black households preserve the generational wealth that homeownership provides, and this finding will hopefully lead to broader discussions of estate planning options for low-income owners here in Richmond. So That's really everything from me. Thank you all again for your time today. I'd be happy to answer any questions in the session following. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Woody. This just so complements the presentations that came before you around what is seen in the data, what we see at the peer cities level, and you bringing that really clear local set of data of what people are actually experiencing is a perfect complement. So thank you so much for that. So now I turn to Rose Marie from the National Council of State Housing Agencies will share with us next their work. Rose Marie is a senior home ownership policy specialist with extensive experience with legislative and regulatory work related to FHA, mortgage insurance, and housing finance. Now I turn it to Rose Marie.
Thank you, Freya, and thank you so much for inviting NCSHA to be part of this discussion. And thank you to Kimberly and the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation for enabling NCSHA to undertake the work that we are doing in this area. First, a little bit about NCSHA. We are a nonprofit bipartisan association. We pursue on behalf of our state HFA members federal housing resources, policies, and flexibilities that are necessary for state HFAs to fully respond to the needs of the residents of their state in affordable housing matters. Our priorities are set every December by our board of directors. And as you can see, for 2024, preservation of affordable for sale and also rental homes is a top priority of our association and indeed of our members. In looking at the attendee list, I thought it might make sense to just briefly talk a little bit about state HFAs. They are state chartered authorities, which means each is a tad different in terms of its work and the programs that it runs, because its authorities differ and its governance differs. But at the heart of all of the work of our members is laser focus on meeting the affordable housing needs of their state residents. That they are very focused on affordable home ownership, I think, is really illustrated well by a statistic from 2022, where the average purchase price of a home ownership program, a home purchased under an HFA home ownership program, was $210,346. And 93% of the recipients of a program loan under an HFA state program were first-time home buyers. In the area of rental housing, the workhorse program is the low-income housing tax credit program. And if you are interested in finding out more information about your state's HFA, please either access our website or simply Google the name of the state plus Housing Finance Agency, and it's usually the first item that comes up. So for our grant activities, we did 4 primary things. First, we created, administered, and analyzed a high-level survey of our members to better understand what home improvement and repair programs they were running. We had never really done that before, outside of some questions we've been asking for a number of years on programs I'll talk about next. We hired an expert consultant, Rita Ballesteros, who is very knowledgeable about energy efficiency and home improvement lending, to work with us to do a deep dive with 5 state housing programs into those programs' operations, their impact, and what is constraining them from doing even more. And then at the end of January, to close out our grant, we hosted a 2-hour showcase that gave representatives from each of the 5 state HFA programs opportunity to dialogue with the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation to talk about their programs. All of this work really informed us in the need to host a national virtual discussion on home improvement, which we did on April 17th, where we had federal officials, state representatives, and representatives from a couple of local programs talk about what is needed to really do more in the area of home improvement and to highlight certain programs. We were pleased that Freya joined us and very much contributed to the discussion that we held at the conclusion of the more programmed panels. Getting back to the survey that we ran using our grant funds, 43 states responded, 23 reported to us that they were offering one or more home improvement and repair program. And what we saw, that was over the prior 12-month period, that the states, across all the states, assisted about 6,700 homeowners with home repair programs, and that they got an estimated $219 million in grants, forgivable loans, and repayable loans out on the street, so to speak, to enable homeowners to do what they needed to do for their home. Across the programs, we were surprised that several states, 6, offered more than one, with Minnesota taking the blue ribbon for offering 4 programs. I will say that this slide, I'm actually pleased to report, is out of date. The survey was done last fall, and since then, we are very well aware that Massachusetts in late spring and Minnesota in late summer both rolled out an energy efficiency loan. And so to me, that underscores that these states are continuously innovating in ways to meet the needs of homeowners in their states. So from our annual survey, we ask questions on other kinds of programs that are linked to home repair and improvement. And so I capture that information on this slide. Our newest fact book will be out in a couple months that will capture information through year-end 2023. 16 states, through their first mortgage programs, offer the FHA 203K program. We are thrilled that FHA updated a number of really key parameters of that program over the summer, and we are looking forward to seeing how that program becomes even more applicable as our housing stock in this country continues to age. The Title I program doesn't have as much use across the states, but the Department of Energy weatherization program does. We know that it is offered in all states, but in 15 states, it's the HFA that is providing funds. And I also wanted to call out the Habitats for Humanity's. 34 of our members partner with Habitats across the country. And I'm pleased to work with Jesse as part of the Black Homeownership Collaborative effort and the Housing Preservation Workstream that meets monthly. And as you can see from that last bullet, home funds from HUD are a key grant source in these programs. Just to capture a little bit more information on our survey, you can see, even though it's in relatively small font, that 13 HFAs are offering a grant program, 9 are offering a forgivable loan program, and then 12 are offering a repayable loan program. I'm sure it's not surprising to you that the grant and grant-like programs are really much more targeted to people at 80% or less of AMI, targeting the need of precious grant funds, and of course, the sources for those funds, both home funds, which require homeowners to income qualify, and what we learned is several state trust funds where those proceeds are used by the HFA for home improvement programs are also very targeted. As a matter of fact, there's at least one state where they are required to be used for homeowners of 60% or below of area median income. This next slide, I'll leave you to peruse at a later point. I just tried to show 2 pieces of information together and on one slide, grant type versus the maximum amount of loan or grant that is permitted. And this is where I really want to focus, which is the 5 programs that we did the deep dive on. And I'm going to quickly summarize a couple points across each of these because that'll help inform for you why I'm going to call out certain other contextual points in the next slide. Idaho's program is one where they directly originate the loans. Qualifying households have an existing Idaho Housing and Finance Association first mortgage. Their loan is offered at prime plus 1%. It's a 10-year loan, and they'll go up to $100,000 depending on the repayment capability of the homeowner. Important point here. It's a limited program of about $4 million a year because Idaho's only source of funding for this is from its own reserves, where they borrow from their balance sheet. Mass Housing's program is offered as a maximum 15-year loan at 5%. It does have some income eligibility requirements attached to it. Those are offered through a lender network that is predominantly made up of local banks and credit unions and one CDFI. Their source of funding, again, is its balance sheet. Minnesota's program is probably the grande dame of our programs. They began in 1972, so they have a very long history, and obviously they've made some enhancements to it over time. Depending on the loan size, it could be a secured or unsecured loan. It is offered through a lender network that is readily available on their website. Again, predominantly depositories, and their loan product goes up to 20 years. Their source of funding has varied over the years, but it's predominantly been reserves. North Carolina's program is, as you can tell, targeted to essential health and safety repairs. They use home funds. Their distribution network is through local partners. And while they strive to be statewide, and they have been over time, this year they are not, because they are lacking partners with capacity in 2 counties. And Pennsylvania's program, as you can tell from its title, is targeted to energy efficiency improvements. It goes out as a 1% simple interest loan for up to 13 years. It was funded through a one-time $5 million state appropriation that the agency has continued to revolve. They have been really adept at working with local partners, working with homeowners who, but for a needed repair, would qualify for weatherization. So at a 1% loan that is repayable, they are able to help people who can be that as a gateway to being able to qualify for weatherization funds. And so now I really want to talk a little bit about the observations. As you can tell, each program is different. They are unique. They are not, well, they're focused on at the core health and safety improvements. Each uses a different funding source, so there is no sheet of music that everybody is playing from, because there's no single national source of funding. 2, most federal sources that our states reported require income qualification. There is little low-cost financing available for intermediaries such as state HFAs to be able to use in their programs, so they are limited by the funds that they can self-generate. I've already talked about partner capacity constraints. We had states we did not include in our list of 5 because they said to us, Rose, we could not do more. We don't have the partner capacity in areas where we could be able to do a low interest rate loan. And so what's happening to the loans that are being made now? They're being held on the balance sheet. The risk is being held by the states because there is no secondary market for repayable home improvement loans, particularly those like the states are originating that are below market. And so NCSHA is looking forward to continuing to try to work in this area. Our vision is to try to scale up an affordable home improvement loan product that can help bridge the gap between those who can afford making repairs through savings or through a market rate consumer loan, and those that income qualify for the precious grant funds that are out there now. And so with that, I again thank Freya and her colleagues, and we look forward to continuing to collaborate in this really important area.
Thank you so much, Rose. It was really great to be able to hear from the perspective of the Housing Finance Authorities what it looks like in terms of the variety of ways that they are contributing to home repair. When I heard your report, I was very impressed, having worked for one in the past, just seeing this taking shape in a more robust way. So now I turn to the Coalition for Home Repair. So I will be speaking about the grant that we received from Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. Our grant specifically focused on capacity building. I was very fortunate to meet Akobe into like my 4th month of becoming the new executive director of the coalition. And he listened to my aspirations, he saw the vision, and he simply said, "You need people." So the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation specifically is recognizing that we can be a stronger convener of partners and financial resource to address the home repair disparities at a national level if we have more people to get the work done. At this time, at the time that I started, we were a team of 3, but now we've grown to 8 individuals working to fulfill the aspirations that I shared with the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, now almost a year and a half ago. But let me take you back just a bit for those that do not know about the coalition. This all began in November of 2011 with our first annual Reframe conference in Johnson City, Tennessee. So our roots are in the Appalachia states. For organizations that were focused on home repair and really looking for a way to come together and talk about their unique needs that they really didn't see any other space for them. There was momentum from members to stay connected and a vision to pursue a collective resources. So today, that vision is realized through a 501c3 nonprofit with over 120 members across the country in 38 states. Our primary goal is to offer technical assistance, certification training, funding, and advocacy preservation for home repair organizations throughout the country. So I am going to share with you my screen so that you can see a few more of the highlights of our work. So before we talk a little bit more about what the Coalition for Home Repair has done, we want to make sure that we highlight our members. Our members are the ones doing the work on the ground. They do this with support from local government and philanthropic dollars, from donations, and from pass-through funding from the Coalition for Home Repair. Specifically, we would like to showcase our member Good Neighbors. Over half of the families that they help are older adult residents, many living alone in older homes that need significant repairs. Good Neighbors has started a program called Healthy Homes Aging in Place for these older adults. They provide grab bars, tub cutouts, wheelchair ramps, and many other things to improve mobility. Good Neighbors was also part of the whole home repairs pilot that is in Pennsylvania. It's been a successful pilot, with Good Neighbors as their partner being awarded $2.7 million. And to date, 33 homes have been repaired and anticipated 166 to repair through this program. Senator John Fetterman also introduced this year Senate Bill 3871 called the Home Repairs Act of 2024 in the Senate. It is a bipartisan act that we are looking very closely at and in contact with Fetterman's office to find out ways that we can, at some point, make this home repair program a national effort. So now I will speak a bit to the work that the coalition has been engaged in since its beginning, but has definitely ramped up with the infusion of additional staff. So first, we offer professional development and technical assistance programs year-round. The number and variety of educational program has increased significantly with the dedication of Megan Goyer, our program and membership coordinator. We are wrapping up our second Aging in Place cohort for 21 staff members from 21 different member organizations. Our cohort combines the Certified Aging in Place specialist training with webinars specific to working with home repair programs for low-income older adults. Our goal is to equip teams to build effective aging in place programs. Through our certification programs, we're able to fund members to have professional development opportunities that they otherwise could not afford with their existing budgets. And we have funded over 60 staff members to receive this training, which equips these organizations to build effective aging in place programs with qualified staff. So you can just see, as everything is on Zoom currently, the trainer with some of his students. We also have found that individuals use this training to highlight their expertise through their LinkedIn post. So it continues to be something that is leveraged even once the training is completed. In addition to our webinar series that are webinars that we have on a variety of topics, we also have our very primary core programming, which is how all this began, our conference. We have an annual conference that this year is being held in Detroit, which is where I reside. All of my staff actually reside all over the country. So our conference will be moving throughout the country, most likely landing in many of the same cities that the New York Furman Center focused on, because we want to be in communities that really are about home repair and are talking about it as a regular element to addressing the affordable housing crisis in our country. So this is from some speakers from our last year's conference, but our hope is to be in a different city, definitely in every year, so that we are learning from all of our members all across the country, because regionally home repair needs are very diverse. Our primary incentive for becoming a coalition member is the opportunity to access pass-through funding from government and philanthropic sources. Right now, our primary pass-through is federal grants. And this is important because many of our members are not eligible to or do not have the infrastructure to really pursue a federal grant directly. Those applications are no joke. They definitely require a lot of staff time, and then following up the administration of them is costly and time intensive. In the past 2 years, we've been awarded $2 million from HUD, first for the Veterans Housing Rehabilitation and Modification Pilot Program, and then more recently for the Older Adult Home Modification Program. These grants are overseen by our Grants Compliance Officer, Jill Weber, and we've been able to manage and redistribute these funds to multiple subrecipients. The Veterans Program went out to 14 home repair organizations across the country, and the Older Adult Modification Program went out to 4 subrecipients in East Kentucky. In both instances, we proactively engage our members to assist us in understanding the local needs so that we can draft quality applications. We also have a pending application for the Preservation and Reinvestment Initiative for Community Enhancement, the long one, also called PRICE, which repairs and replaces manufactured housing. Our grant, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, has been critical in helping us to write strong applications because I now have qualified staff that are invested in doing so. We're proud to leverage their investment into more funding and awareness, and pending secured funding funds that have been pursued have now totaled $6 million just from the support that we received from Robert Wood Johnson to have the staff to make it possible for us to more robustly pursue funding options. In the past year, we've also created an advocacy task force, and this has been done through the tireless efforts of Emma Carrasco, our advocacy and research coordinator. And we have done this through a very collaborative approach of reaching out to other national organizations that are focused on home repair, maybe very specifically, or maybe focused more on the health element within homes, and even working with organizations such as Feeding America, who is in these homes. And although home repair is not their primary focus, they see these needs and are doing what they can to address them. Home repair affects so many elements of individuals' lives, and we realized that we needed to approach this with a multi-sector approach, including all the various ways that individuals' needs for home repair are so critical. So few of our milestones have been defining our goals, establishing those advocacy partnerships so that we actually have a strong steering team of national and regional partners that can help us guide where our priorities will be in the coming years. Oops. And through this task force, we've been able to meet bi-monthly, and anyone is invited to join. This is a free open call to anyone who has an interest and a desire to learn and to advocate for home repair, but also just affordable housing preservation, because we also work with the rental side as well, because if we can't keep people in their homes they own, they will return to a rental market that also is not affordable or sustainable. We've also been able to create an advocacy resource library on our website. And in particular, we've been following some national trends and current opportunities that we share regularly with our members, so that our members who are doing the work of actually repairing homes have someone checking the legislation, both nationally, state-wise, and in some cases even locally, to ensure that they are kept abreast of what is most pressing for them to pay attention to and for them to advocate in the ways that they're able. We also are a member of the Community Development Block Grant Coalition, which is celebrating its 15 years of providing flexible funding. And we're definitely hoping that more of that funding will be utilized for home repair, as there are many different ways that funding can be implemented, home repair definitely should be rising to the top, along with rehabilitation and modification. These are two, as I mentioned, the Community Development Block Grant, but also the whole Home Repairs Act, as was mentioned earlier, is something that we are keeping close tabs on. And this particular act is about coordination, which was brought up several times throughout this presentation. That coordination of funding is what's really going to be a game changer. All the funding in the world is not going to help if people cannot access it. And oftentimes this funding is contingent upon one another. So this whole Homes Repairs Act is about creating that one-stop shop to coordination, so that the homeowner is left with less stress. The nonprofits doing the work can get the funding quickly and effectively and efficiently, and be able to get these homes repaired as holistically as possible. So some statistics. Although we rely on the research of many of our national partners, such as Harvard and the National Center for Healthy Housing, we also have been doing some data collection of our own over the past few years. In particular, we have a falls prevention data demonstration project where we had 50 home repair organizations get the certified aging in place training, and then they became a cohort. And we asked for them to do pre and post survey collection of the homeowners' tendencies for falling, and then following up to find out if those falls had been reduced. We are working with the East Tennessee State University and Home Renewed. It ended up being 12 organizations that were able to report back to us, and we've seen a 65% decrease in the number of falls occurring inside the home, and a 63% reduction in falls while entering or exiting the home. We also annually collect data from our members through an impact report. Members have helped at least 150,000 low-income residents access safer housing through that includes 8,800 veterans, 51,000 people with disabilities, and more than 77,000 older adults. Since 2016, the number of homes repaired by our members has reached nearly 64,000, and nearly 14,500 residents have low and moderate incomes, were served in the last year, and now have safe and healthy homes. These are just some of the statistics for you to be able to view. More homes per member organizations are made safer in 2023 than the average change in total homes repaired increased by 44% when compared to 2022. We are committed to increasing the number of home repair organizations that can benefit from the services that we provide at the Coalition for Home Repair. We aspire to have a strong representation in every state of the U.S., so all votes, including nonprofits, governments, and most importantly, homeowners, can rise with this tide that we are seeing of increased awareness, funding, and access to safer and healthier homes for all. So if anyone is on this call that is a home repair organization or a government entity looking to collaborate, network, learn, and access funding, please reach out to us. We will be happy to share more about the benefits. And even if you're not one of those organizations, but just have a strong passion for this work, also reach out so that we can get you invited to our advocacy task force meetings that are free and open to the public. Now, finally, I would like to conclude before we jump into our questions, by letting you know again that our annual conference is in Detroit, November 13th to the 15th. And for those that are on this call that actually are attending and we've kept track, we will be offering you an opportunity to attend the conference at a discount. You will receive an email after this event, most likely by Friday. So if you have an interest in attending the conference, I hope you will, and take advantage of this special thank you for joining us today, listening to all of the wonderful things that are happening and taking shape around home repair. And now I turn to some questions. I'm going to stop this for a second. Stop sharing. So I now open it up to our audience to share any questions that you may have. And all of our presenters, feel free to turn back on your screens so that we can see your smiling faces. Wonderful. I know it was a lot of information and all so good and well tied together. But also, as you're thinking about your questions, we will also send out a survey afterwards to further learn how this process of this webinar worked for you, because we hope to continue to collaborate and share together in various ways, but also to collect additional questions that may arise in the future.
Freya, we did have one question from Simone, who said, what are some of the challenges in offering repair loans to the secondary market? So Rosemary, I don't know if you want to take that one. And she said, why is there no market for this?
Who wanted to grab that one? Could you share that question one more time, Megan? Make sure we all heard it.
Yeah, of course. I think it was geared towards Rosemary's presentation about, although I could be wrong, about offering some of the challenges in offering repair loans to the secondary market and asking why there's no market for this.
That's a really good question. You know, where there is standardization, if you think about the first mortgage market, you have FHA telling lenders how to originate loans. You have Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac telling them what they have to do to originate and service and securitize loans. There is no entity doing that for home improvement. I can't tell you why. Maybe it is felt that the lien position, which would be at least a second lien position, might be a riskier position. But maybe that's for all of us to work towards proving that where you help somebody be sustainable and healthy and thrive in their home, there is no additional risk. Maybe that's maybe the pie in the sky hope, but I don't think there's a lot of rich data, and data is needed a lot of times to create a secondary market. So those are just some off the cuff thoughts. Thanks.
Yeah, excellent question. Very good points. I see there was another question. We provide home repairs, but we're not sure how to use all of the programs that were mentioned. Yes, I think several of our presenters could speak to finding out that to be quite a challenge. And it is that coordination piece that we all in this field really need to be advocating for and developing solutions. So it's one thing to say there's a problem. There's another thing to figure out how we're going to handle it. And so that whole Home Repair Act is one of those approaches. But if anyone else would like to speak to some of the challenges and maybe even possible options of how to address accessing those programs. Looks like Sophia may be trying to say something. No?
I was wondering if Jess had any insights from the peer or from the convenings of all the peer cities.
Yeah, on the stakeholder coordination piece specifically, yeah. I mean, I think what we learned is just how much effort it truly takes to get the stakeholders aligned around a central program and being able to really agree on, a vision for it and the goals, and having the buy-in and support of all of those stakeholders is just so important. And so I think, really when looking in some of these municipalities we worked with, like that, going through that process is what helped their partners learn about the breadth and the depth of all of the programs that are operating in that one community with just so much need for home repair programs. So I feel like we can't overstate the importance of that coordination piece, and that recognizing that it is extra work and administrative kind of burden and cost to do all of that, but how important it really is.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I know that the Harvard Center, I think it was like 18 different programs just federally out there, 15 or 18. So just at the federal level, there's a lot of different funding resources, let alone what's at your state and local level. So it can get very confusing. There was another question. I'm the regional director of a youth and young adult faith-based repair organization. One of our biggest challenges is recruiting volunteers and securing funding. Does the coalition help with that? Yes. So that is one of our primary focuses, is because most of our home repair organizations are volunteer supported. That is kind of how we started, was with organizations that really use volunteers to keep down the cost, and using contractors very strategically, so that more money went into the home rather than into where we don't got to pay our contractors, but we're trying to, spread that dollar. And so we definitely are always networking and collaborating to help one another bolster volunteer recruitment, but also as a pass-through funder. Whenever we do receive federal grants, we are trying to get that out to our members, as many as possible, as well as our philanthropic funds as well. And Megan, could you tell us what the next question is? Because for some reason can't quite see it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a question that I think might be a good fit for you, Woody, if you want to take it. Divya was asking if any of the panelists could elaborate on how effective home repair programs can contribute to improving health outcomes, and what mechanisms are in place to kind of measure these impacts.
Yeah, so I think that that's one of the things that what our study is really trying to focus on is, not just in terms of finances and wealth preservation, but how do home repairs have a tangible and physical impact on the homeowners and the people in the household who are living in them, especially regarding their physical well-being. I think we've seen that often the homeowners who are receiving repairs are limited in terms of their mobility. Many do have as well as some form of disability. Many are older residents. So one of the things that Project Homes, who we've been working with as the home repair organization, they do is build ramps for clients. That's one of the most common, actually, sort of like easier repairs to do, but also making sure that bathrooms are accessible and kitchens are accessible like that. So it's definitely something that we'll be looking to measure the impact of. Don't quite have results yet, but it's something we're looking at for sure.
Awesome.
So
Thank
one
you,
more
Woody.
question.
And there was a follow-up for Woody, actually.
Okay.
Are you planning to quantitatively understand the impact of the repairs on wealth, or will that be more like qualitatively assessed?
That's a great question, and something I think we've recently kind of considered. Of course, the quantitative analysis would require some more complex modeling and things like that. So we'll have to sort of understand if the data is there for us to create some sort of system like that to understand that quantitatively. But certainly that will be, we'll consider that, and the qualitative aspect is definitely going to be measured.
Thank you. And so we're at our last minute. We do have a couple of the questions in the chat that we will follow up on, and just make sure that all of those are taken care of. But if anyone has any additional questions, please feel free to reach back out to us. All of our emails will be shared as well as a follow-up, so that you can dive deeper into what we're up to. Thank you so much for being here today. It was truly a pleasure to share with my colleagues and to hear from all of you. And so have a great rest of your Wednesday. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.